Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I ask that you please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Covering a lot of different topics, a lot of different techniques for a homeowner to gain confidence to do some of these projects on their own. For everybody else, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing a couple of different techniques on how to patch hole in your drywall. So today we're going to be discussing the tools that you need, the prep that you need to do for your project, and then how to finish it up. So now we're going to go through and discuss some of the tools that you're going to need for this project. For starters, you're going to need drywall mud. I've got two different types here. I've got an Easy Sand 5-minute, so it sets up pretty quick. Otherwise, if you use, and I like to use all-purpose mud. The problem with it, this is compared to the 5-minute Easy Sand, this takes a longer time to cure. If you don't have a lot of time to deal with it, you can use the Easy Sand. This stuff does not shrink as much, so it will mitigate cracking in your patch. But once you're doing your topping and your coats that you're doing, I like to use the all-purpose compound. You're going to need some tape, and I'll show you that on one of the patches that we're going to be doing. Some type of sanding block, sandpaper, whatever the case. Water, a pan to mix your drywall mud up in, a piece of scrap drywall. You can get a lot of these. You can get like a 2-foot by 2-foot chunk at your home improvement stores. A knife that you can use to cut and score the drywall, and then drywall knives. I've got a 6-inch and a 3-inch here. Next, we're going to go ahead and move over to the wall, and I'll show you how to start the prep work on that. So if you followed any of my other videos, you'll notice that this wall looks strikingly familiar. This is the one that we used for the electrical outlet install last week. I'm going to patch these holes, but I want to show you exactly what you need to do to prep. So we got to have another hole. So the best way to put another hole in a wall is with one of these bad boys. All right, so now that we've identified our hole in our wall, you got to kind of square it up. You can't just throw a patch over the top of it. This box would probably look familiar too because it was used for the electrical outlet. So all I'm going to do is line up my box, make my pencil mark because I want to square up. So when I put my patch in there, it's a nice even edge because you're going to have a lot of soft material from where that hole got put in. All right, so you can see you still have these burrs around here. Now, when you go ahead and put your patch in, if that stuff isn't completely smooth and level, that's going to give you bumps on it. So when you take your knife, and like I say, I like to use these ones because the blades are easily changeable, but you want to extend a little bit more out. And then all you're going to do is you're going to come in and kind of cut a bevel. So you want to cut and bevel that drywall so it removes all of that material. So when you do put your patch on it, and it's all right if you peel the paper because you're going to be patching it. And there you have it. You have a nice, clean, even edges. And don't worry about the paper here because it, like I say, it does get covered with the tape. Or the other technique I'm going to show you is you're going to make your patch, but you're going to leave the paper on the material. And anything that's in there, like obviously this is a mock-up wall, but you just push it back. It's out of the way. You don't have to worry about it. So for people that aren't familiar with how to cut drywall, I'm going to kind of give you a quick little tutorial. So I got my piece of scrap here, and I measured out where I need it, marked a line with my square. Then all you're going to do is just take your knife, keeping it on the line, and it don't have to be perfect, you just got to get close. You just score the top of it. And all you're going to do is once it's scored on the line, flip it over, kind of like give it a little smack, fold it over, and then bring your knife on the back side, and you've already cut your piece. It's pretty simple. All right, so for our first patch, I'm going to do it with a paper over so you don't have to use any tape with this one. So what you're going to do, remember when I traced out my line with my box? Makes it real easy because that's the size of my patch. So I place my box in the center of my piece of drywall, and then I'm going to trace my box size. Now the box is going to have little dimples on it, so I don't have to make it exactly square, because what I'm going to do once I've got those lines made, I'm going to take my square and I'm going to square up my lines. So from there I'm just going to go like that, and I want to go on the outside of my lines for my box. So I get square on there, and then I'm going to do the same thing with up top. And if you make your patch a little bit bigger, that's all right, because guess what? You can make the hole a little bit bigger as well. It's not a big deal. So that's all I'm going to do. I've got my square. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from corner to corner on my piece of drywall, lining up the corners of where I've got my patch. And then I'm going to draw a line that way, and then I'm going to draw a line that way. I'm going to come to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing, corner to corner, all the way across. And I'll show you what you're going to do here in a second and the reason why you're doing this. So now that we've got all of our lines marked out, remember that snap that we did with our drywall patch? Same principle applies. So all I'm going to do, following the lines that I've already marked on the back. Now, like I say, you want to do this on the back of your drywall. You don't want to do it on the front, because you want to keep that paper, because that's going to serve as your tape. Cutting around on the lines for the box, trying to stay on the line as much as possible. Then your lines that are running diagonally, they don't have to be perfect. You're all right. On all the lines, just like that. Then the long ones are the ones you want to snap first. Get everything broke, like so. You peel it off, and you peel it off. You peel that one off. Peel that one off. And there you have your drywall patch with your paper already on it. Alright, so now that you've got your patch, you've got your paper, it's already on your patch. All you're going to do, bring it over to that box that you marked out, and you can see it fits in there all the way around. Now you can trim your paper back if you want, or you can leave it that way. You're going to have to be doing some texture and some repainting, so the farther out you are away from it, the better it is that you have the paper. Just making sure that your patch is completely set and flush, and you can, once you run your hands down, you're going to be able to feel the edges, but that's what you're going to be putting that second and third coat of mud on there, is to feather that out away from the patch so it blends in, so it's not noticeable. Alright, so before you're getting ready to mix your mud, because remember, it's a 5-minute mud, you might have a little dimples from the gypsum on the back of your paper. All you're going to want to do is just take your sanding block. You just want to sand that stuff down so you get a nice, smooth, just feeling that it's smooth. Once it's good, don't keep rubbing on it, because once you start rolling up paper, that's when you're going to know that you're getting into the paper and you're not taking care of the mud. So all the little areas, got one little one here, just want to sand it down so that stuff stays smooth. Same way with around on the edges. You see how we got some right here? You just come in there with your sanding block. You're just trying to take the high points down, that's all. Now you should have a nice smooth patch going on your wall, especially on these outsides, because that's where you want to make sure that you don't have any dimples, any bumps. All right, so now we're going to go into the procedures of how to mix your fast setting compound so you can get your patch put into place. Now this stuff only mix what you can use within that time period, because if you mix too much, it's going to be firm in about 5 minutes. So without any caring about any instructions, we're just going to pour in what we think we're going to need into our mixing pan. And you're going to want it a little bit wet. Not too wet, but you're going to want it with a little bit of moisture in it, because you want and I'll show you why, because you're going to have to squeeze that mud out from behind that patch, just putting a thin coat in it. So mixing your mud up in your pan till you get a nice consistency. You almost want it to like a pancake batter mix consistency. That way you'll have plenty of the ability to squeeze any excess mud out from behind your patch. Once you get it all mixed up, you got a nice even consistency. And like I say, it'll start setting up on you. It'll set up pretty quick. I like to take, just for holding purposes, I like to butter the edges. Just like so. That way if there's any imperfections on your patch, you've got mud, and like I said, it's just going to push through. It'll just fall down behind it, and like I say, in about 5 minutes it'll be firmed up. See, just like that. Just having a little bit set in there. Now, like I say, once you have a little bit of the mud in there, you're just going to feather out your drywall mud all the way around it. Putting on a generous coating, because what you're going to do is once you have your patch done, you're going to squeeze all this mud out. Now for some people, maybe you want to draw a line so you know exactly how far out your patch goes, so you know where you have to put your mud. So once you got a nice generous coat of it on there, all you're going to do is take your patch, line it up, place it in the opening, make sure that the paper, and you can see how I missed some mud right up there and probably down here. So before you start pushing it all down, you just pull it back, take a little bit more mud, feather it out there. Same with up at the top. Just pull your patch back, feather some more mud out. Now you don't have to be in a huge rush, but you do, like I say, you have to know that you have 5 minutes to work with this. Once you have that done, you always start in the middle and come down. And pull your mud out from under it. Once you have the tape seated, it'll hold. Then you start from here and you go up. And if you get this little ripple, don't worry about it. All you have to do is kind of like bring it sideways. Clean up the edges. The second type of patch that you can do is take a piece of scrap wood, cut it to the size that you need it. Now, you can't reach behind the box, so you're going to have something to hold that piece of scrap wood while you're securing it. So you take a screw, once you've got your patch made to the size, take a screw, just sink it a little bit. Grab a couple of your drywall screws, go over to your opening, get a screw on the end of your bit, and all you're going to do is just slide it in and line it up. You're going to use that screw in the middle to hold it, and then you're going to put a screw right just dimpling the paper with it. Now, if this wasn't a mock-up, things would be a lot easier, but I gotta kind of hold the wall and the scrap piece. So, getting it tight, and there you have it. Now you're gonna be making your patch for where you put your piece of scab plywood in. So what I like to do is, so I don't have to make as many cuts as humanly possible, I'll put it right on the corner of the opening. Now, reference our box. We know that that's the same size hole that we have. So all I'm going to do is just make a line there, and make a line there. And then all you have to do, take your knife. You don't even have to cut. You're just going to take your knife, staying on the line, cutting down. Cut all the way past, snap it, just cut it off, and then you do the same thing for the bottom of it. Cut it, snap it, and then cut the back of it off. Sometimes your patch might be a little bit too big, so then all you're going to want to do there is just take your utility knife, and you'll see you've got a little bit of extra drywall that hangs over. And just come in and clean that up. Alright, just like on our first patch, you're going to have these little boogers, I guess you can call them. And all you're going to do is, like before, just come in here and shave those off. It'll make your patching go a heck of a lot easier and smoother if you're not having to work around the dimpling that's on the paper. You come in there on all four sides, just kind of shave those off, so you got a nice clean edge around your box. Same thing goes for on your patch. Not so much, because once you get it in place and screwed in, but on the back of it, I like to take the same principle. Just kind of shave down the corners of it. It just makes it easier to fit in there. Making sure that you got no debris or anything up in there. You take your patch, just working it in so it's nice and flush. Take your screw gun with a couple of screws. I'm going to put one down here. Just dimpling the paper with your screw. The holding power on this drywall is the paper. Probably went a little deep there, but if you run your fingers, and I'll show you a little trick to know if your screws are seated enough. So you take your clean drywall knife, run it down. You don't hear anything, don't hear anything. You hear that metallic click? That tells me that my screw is not seated deep enough. So you come back over with your screw gun. Probably went too deep on that one. And now, you don't hear a metallic click. All you heard was just the drywall knife hitting the seams on the patch. For this one, I'm going to show you how to use the all-purpose mud. Now, you might go down to the store and you might pick up a tub of this stuff and you think, hey, it's already ready mixed. It's moist. All I have to do is open the lid and slap it on the wall. It's not the case. You want to, and like I said, it does have some moisture in it. You know, it is ready to go per se, but I don't like doing that. I like to add a little bit of water to mine just so it makes the consistency thicker and easier to work with. Alright, so our first patch, it's still a little bit dry, but you can sand it. It's good enough. And you're going to notice you've got these lift-offs or knife edges, everything else that you have from when you put the patch on. So what you're going to want to do is just take a sanding block, and you can pick these up at any of the big box stores, and just kind of lightly sand your edges. We got a little dimple down here on this piece of drywall, so what I'll do is I'll show you how to patch these small little ones as well. Getting ready to do our patch that we put our scab piece in. So you're going to want some paper tape, and what you're going to want to do is just go past a little bit past your screws, kind of identify where you're going to have your paper stop. So probably right there where my thumb is at, and all you can do, come here, once you know where it's at, lay your knife down, and you're going to need two pieces. Line it up, you know where you're at, and tear it off. Don't worry about your air holes. Set your pan off to the side. Take your tape. And you can kind of see where my patch is at, so I kind of know where the center of my box was at. You're going to lay your paper in there. And then take your other piece and lay it right up on it. Make sure it's embedded in the mud. And then starting from the middle, you have to embed the tape into the mud. So all you're going to do is put pressure up here, starting in the middle of that first piece, and squeeze that drywall mud out. Come to the other side, do the same thing, and embed the tape into the mud. Grab your pan, wipe your knife off, and then you can go up. It'll move a little bit on you. That's why you have that paper expand beyond where you're and if your paper kind of wrinkles a little bit, don't worry about it, because you're going to be putting topping coats over the top of it. Alright, so we're going to transition back over to, we use the 5-minute easy sand. We've already knocked down all of our little dimples, everything else, and I already prepped, just like I did on the other holes. I took my knife and went around and kind of cleaned up around that one that we're going to kind of patch. So for that one, all you're going to do is just get a little bit of mud on the end of your knife. And just kind of like and then it's good. It's going to require probably 1 or 2 coats. If you want, you can actually put a paper patch over it. It just all depends on how deep it is and how big it is. This one's probably borderline. I probably should have put some paper on it. And actually, I'm probably going to do that. So I've already filled it. So that's a good thing. All I'm going to do, grab my paper tape. Just set it. Take me off a little piece. Tear it off. I got my paper patch right there. Grab some mud. Put it over it. Probably entirely too thick. And it took too much off. Take your piece of paper that you have for your paper tape. Lay it over where you're going to have your patch. And this one here, I'm just going to come from the side and wipe it clean. And then it'll set up and dry. This all-purpose mud takes a lot longer, so the reason why I went with the 5-minute quick sand or easy sand is just so we could show you the next coat. So you definitely can see where your patch is at. So what you're going to do is you come in your pan. You want to just lay coats over the top of it. Get plenty of mud over the patch. Don't worry about how it looks, because you're going to be working it out and smoothing it off. Get plenty of mud on the wall. Come around your edges. You want plenty of it around. Like I say, you're going to have to paint, and if you have textured walls, you're going to have to go through with that. So if you take your knife, you can kind of like, in your hand, you can rotate it, and you can put that pressure on that outside. So all you're going to do is, starting up here, you want to feather that edge. Then you do the same thing on the other side, coming around this way. And then just working your way in. If you get these little boogers in there, don't worry about it. It's just chunks in the drywall mud, or you had something on your knife. It's not the end of the world. You're just going to feather it. Coming down the middle, you're going to push it out. Coming back here, push it out. Come back here, push it out. And then you're going to have these little lift-offs. You can see the lift-off right here and a lift-off right there. See how I've got this over here? All you're going to do, there again, put pressure on the outside of your knife. You got that lift-off right here. Come back down through. Now I've, in essence, pushed my lift off to right down the middle. Same way with on this side. And after this one dries, you're going to come back in and you're going to sand the edges lightly just to blend them in, and then you're going to sand these lift-offs down and then put your next coat in. Don't worry so much about the little dimples you got in the mud, because you're going to do a final topping coat where you're going to have everything nice and clean, and then you'll texture after that. All right, so moving back over to our scab patch that we put our piece of plywood in, that we filled and did this project, this patch, with our all-purpose. Now, it's not completely dry. You can see the coloration. This is what dry paper is going to look like. This is what your moist paper is going to look like. You can definitely see the difference there. But once it's sat up, and it doesn't have to be completely dry for you to put your second coat on it. So all you're going to do is you can come back, get some more mud on your knife, come down the middle, apply your next coat, and you're going to want, because you're going to be feathering this out. The whole purpose of drywall is you're not going to have completely square level walls. What you're trying to do is you're trying to manipulate the mud to give it the illusion that it is square and level. So I come down the middle, put a lot on there because of how wet it was, and then there again, you're going to feather the edge. Come down, wipe your knife clean, come down, feather the edge. Just pushing the mud towards the middle. Same way with on this side. Now you can see I've got a couple of little boogers in there, but that's all right, because you know what? When you sand it, that's a high point. Leave it there. You're going to do more damage and create more work by trying to scoop that out of that mud that's already there. Let it dry, let it set up. Then you come back through once it's dried, and you'll be able to tell, because this will turn white. You see how the edge of our 5 minute quick set? That's what this is going to look like. You can already see where it's already kind of like started to dry from that initial patch, that initial coat. Once this is all white and you just come through with your sandpaper, you just sand it off. That way, even if it's got a little dimple on it, because guess what? That dimple, the next time you come through, you're going to fill it. So for the little dimple that we had in the wall, we actually filled it. We put some paper on it. You can see where it's already starting to turn white. That means that it is drying. So it doesn't have to be totally dry for you to go ahead and patch. I probably got too much mud on my knife for this patch, so let's just go with a little bit smaller roll. And then all you're going to do is just roll it up on there, right? Get it covered. Come through. Feather the edges. Just keep working it. Now, I can actually go through, because of how big that is, what I'll do, and it's just something that you had in your drywall mud. It's not the end of the world. I'll just refill it. And make sure you're not putting too much pressure on the knife, just enough to manipulate the mud. So you can see the 3 different types of patches that we did. This one here being our paper patch that we prepped our drywall and used the actual drywall paper as our paper for our patch. This one up here is where we actually put that scab piece of plywood in, and then we screwed it in, and then we took our patch and made it the same size, and then used paper tape to cover our patch. And then the last one down here, it's just a little dimple. You know, you might have kids that are running and playing in the house and whatnot. You just fill the hole, you know, clean it up, and then fill the hole with mud. And it, depending on how deep it was, that one was kind of borderline. So I went ahead and put a piece of paper over that. All right, folks, so this kind of wraps up today's video for what we've done. Like I said, we had 3 different types of patches that we covered. The first one being taking a piece of drywall, notching it, and using the actual paper of the drywall as our paper patch. Second one, we scabbed in a piece of plywood, filled it with a piece of drywall, cleaned up the edges of the drywall, and then put down our taping coat, and then put 2 pieces of tape down there for our patch. The last one is this one down here, and it's just a small dimple in your drywall. And like I said, you might have kids, you might have, if you're hauling stuff around inside the house, bam, you dimple the drywall, but you don't go all the way through. All you need to do is just take some drywall compound, fill it, then put your paper, 2 pieces of tape, 2 pieces of tape, and then put 2 pieces of drywall, and then put your paper your paper tape over it, and then put your tape coat on top of it. If you enjoyed today's episode, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way that I can increase the viewership inside of YouTube's algorithm, so this information can get shared with more people to hopefully help them gain confidence and an understanding, get the tools that they need to conduct some of these projects on their own, save the homeowner some money, especially in today's environment. If you can do a lot of this work on your own, you can still increase the value of your property and make repairs on your own and not have to hire a contractor. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and God bless.
Someday